York County is so much more than just a stop for gas on I-80. 17 County is filled with unique individuals with unique stories just waiting to be told. Welcome to the 17 County Podcast with your host, Emily Perry.
This is 17 County Podcast. Thank you for tuning in for today's episode. Be sure to like, subscribe, and listen. This helps our podcast grow, and we thank you for your continued support. We would also like to take the time to thank our York County Development Corporation members, AgriProducts, Cornerstone Bank, Nebraska Public Power District, and Central Valley Ag. Without these great members, we wouldn't be able to focus on the growth and development of York County here at the YCDC. So thank you. Let's get to the podcast. Today we have a woman with us who does a little bit of everything. April McDaniel is a wife, mom, CPA, and co-founder of Living in the Right Lane. She's passionate about perseverance and often shares her insights on finding strength through adversity. She emphasizes the transformative power of healing through helping others. So thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Emily.
Yeah, absolutely. I know for myself, at least, I'm very, very excited to have you here. You have some really amazing stories to tell. So I guess let's just jump right into it. What is your story? I mean, let's start at the beginning. I know.
Well, so I guess I could start back from probably even in my adolescent years. I think that everyone goes through different things, and the definition of hard is relative. Right? So what was hard for me might be somebody's daily life, and it's not hard for them. But growing up, I would say I had a typical American family, mom, dad, and I have 3 brothers and sisters, and things changed a lot. Probably around the time I was 8 years old, my parents started arguing a lot, lots of alcoholism involved. At least on one side of that. Right. And so that was really where I figured out that things can be hard.
Right.
And I think that in your life you have different things that really change your perspective on the future for you. And when my parents divorced, it certainly changed my perspective on things.
Yeah.
And saw my mom try to raise 4 kids and do that, working 3 jobs, going back to college. We lost the house. We were the family on food stamps, had neighbors upon neighbors reaching out to help us. And when you're 10 years old, you don't realize that's what's happening. But as you get older, you realize that those people, those neighbors, the church, that's kind of who picked you up. And so since then, I've just realized that, you can take things like that and you can do good things with them, or you can fall into those things that maybe happened during your life. And so I could be an alcoholic.
Right.
I could have failed marriages, or I can choose to work on those things so that I don't have that.
Yeah.
And so that was probably the first thing. It also made me realize that, and this is going to sound probably bad to some people, but it was my view at the time, was I never wanted to have to depend on someone else to support me.
Yeah, right.
And so as a woman, that meant get a really good education, get a really good job. If I ever had to support children on my own, be prepared to do that. Yeah. Now, God willing, I never do. I mean, obviously, I love my husband. Brian and I have been married for almost 20 years, and that's taught me a lot of things, too. But I think that kind of started things for me. It was what I saw. I saw my mom struggle. I'm like, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to figure out how not to do that. And for me, that was climb the corporate ladder. It was how do you make the money that you need in order to be successful? So things changed. Obviously, like I said, there's different things that define you over life, but that was probably the first one. And then we had, I met my husband, Brian, when I graduated college, and we did long distance relationships. I'm from Iowa originally, and we dated long distance. He was living out here in Nebraska, actually out by Henderson, and I was working for one of the top accounting firms in the world. You don't give up that opportunity when you have it, even if you're in love. So I did that, got some experience, and then moved out here. And I've been in York County ever since, lived in York for a short time. Brian got deployed. I was here I think 4 or 5 months, and he got deployed.
Wow.
And so we bought a place. I moved in. He stayed one night. He left for Bosnia for about 9 months.
Wow.
And so then, that's the next step of adversity, right? What do?
Yeah.
I'm living on an acreage. I'm by myself. I had great people around me to help me. A great church family, a great group of friends, wonderful in-laws, And so just depending on those people and realizing, okay, I can get through this.
Yeah.
That life that I'm looking forward to at that time with Brian and still today it's worth that. It's worth that to just keep working on it. And so learned a lot of things during that time, a ton of stuff. Mice are very prevalent during harvest season when you live in the sticks, I guess, or live out in the country. And also learned how much I love being in York County, love being in this area. Just people care about you.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I changed jobs through that time too, or shortly after Brian and I got married. Him and I had our son Lane, and we were blessed to have Lane. Lane was born early but very healthy. And of course, like all parents, you have this dream of having healthy children, having this journey of, we're going to have whatever that number is. For Brian and I, we're going to have a gazillion children. And so that started very early for us. We got married in September of 2004, and we had Lane 9 weeks early, but in July of 2005. Mm-hmm. And life changed very drastically for us about 1 month after he was with us. Lane got very sick, and he became lethargic, and we ended up having to call the ambulance, and he was baptized under danger of death, which is a Catholic thing.
Right.
But he was baptized under danger of death while here at the ER in York. We're transferred then back to St. Elizabeth's, which we had spent some time there when he was a preemie, and then found out that he had contracted what's called group beta strep through probably a bad blood stick while in the neonatal unit. Typically that's a disease or an illness that's passed through a mom, but I was not positive for that. It was something they tested me for. So went back to the emergency room, went back to the hospital, and found out that he had contracted this. It caused meningitis, and life just stopped.
Right.
I mean, it was, what do you do? He was on full life support for a while. Every single stat he had was fatal. And again, you go back to your neighbors and your friends and your prayer circle, and we just prayed. There were so many prayers, and I believe that the reason Lane was with us was because of those prayers. About 2 weeks into, maybe not even quite 2 weeks into his stay at St. Elizabeth's, Brian's Nebraska Army National Guard unit got deployed again. And he, because Brian was a good soldier and had done a lot of things right while being in the reserves, his commander allowed him to stay stateside.
Good.
And that was a big blessing.
Yeah.
As a mom, as a new mom, you have all these hormones, of course, happening. I really think that was another defining moment for us. It was, Brian, if you're not here, I don't know that I mentally can do this. Like it was, imagine the thought of losing a child, and you're going through that, and it's your first baby, and it was very, very hard. Go fast forward through that a little bit, just because otherwise this could take a year. Yeah. We were able to bring Lane home. He ended up having to have a brain surgery and different things. But when we came home, he was, we knew he was going to be delayed. We really didn't know what to expect. We had a wonderful pediatrician in Lincoln, Dr. Scott Applegate, who said, let Lane show you. There were doctors that said Lane will be in a vegetative state his entire life, just kind of get over it. And Dr. Applegate said, let him show you. And we decided then that was what we were going to follow. It wasn't the negative, it was the positive. And I think that's the thing in everything.
Yeah.
You could choose to sit in your pity and think you have to stay there, or you figure it out and you move forward. What's the thing that you're thankful for? And at that point, I could have focused on the fact that he got sick and it wasn't my fault. Somebody else got him sick. I could have focused on a ton of different things, but instead it was, let's focus on giving him the best life and all that. So we, again, had great people around us. Had my daughter Samantha 11 months after Lane was born, and we were on this journey, a ton of kids, right? That was the journey, and figured out then that changing jobs was something that had to happen, and so I made a change, and still I was searching for this personal growth opportunity, right? I still hadn't figured out, and I have figured it out now, but I hadn't figured out that goal really wasn't what was important, that really wasn't it, but I hadn't figured it out yet. And so, we had Samantha. Samantha was also a preemie. I had a uterine rupture during delivery for her, before delivery for her. The doctor said, Brian and April, you might want to slow this down. We're going to lose you or a baby. And we said, okay, well, we're not ready to give up. If God says it's time to give up, we'll give up, but we'll give it a little time. So we waited a while, and then ended up having some fertility problems when we tried to have our daughter Lacey. And during this time, Samantha was developing normally, all the exciting things about having a little girl were happening. Lane was doing exciting things too. He learned out how to sit up on his own, and he could walk with some support. And while he couldn't say mom or dad, I want a cracker or anything like that, he was full of life and just an amazing kiddo. We fought the battles for him to go to Catholic school. We fought the battles to get some additional health care for him. I became very, very involved in the legislative process, arguing for benefits for him, just a ton of different things. We had great daycare for him at First Step here in town. We also had daycare at a home daycare for quite a while that was wonderful. And we just were very surrounded by people that helped support us and kept moving forward. So Lacey was born, that would have been in 2011. She was a preemie too. And then they said, you got to stop. So we did. We decided that was it. And that's okay. I think, sometimes the thing about having life goals, and at that for children, it was a lot.
Right.
But sometimes you have to adjust your goals and be happy with what you have.
Yeah.
And so 3 was a great number. It's fine. In 2014, Lane died. And I'm going to try not to get emotional. Yeah. But, it was very much a surprise. We had planned for Lane to be with us our entire life. He just didn't wake up. And obviously there's a ton of stuff you go through there, a lot of dark days. Yeah. A lot of very, very dark days. And, when I hear somebody losing a child, we'll be 10 years out from that in March. And when I hear about somebody losing a child now, I can reach out to them and say, I hope God gives you some light during these dark days. I know how it is. How's the sun coming up? I can't believe the sun is even rising.
Right.
I'm looking at the highway and there's cars going by. Why? How can they be driving?
Yeah.
And because, again, it's all relative. That's what I was going through at the moment.
Right.
And, your community surrounds you and everybody helps you. And we had so many people that supported us. And we had, a great group of people that knew that Brian and I had really wanted to start something bigger than just our own personal story, and helping other families that have kids with special needs kind of navigate life. And not a ton of money. I mean, we didn't have a ton of money.
Right.
And but we knew a lot of things. We knew there's a process that government goes through to determine whether a child qualifies for benefits. We fought that battle. We fought the battle with the schools. We had great support from KOOL Junction Public Schools that allowed Lane to go to Catholic school, and they provide support for us. We had the Catholic school that welcomed him. Monsignor Reinert was an amazing priest that worked with Lane. Lots of great teachers, lots of great paras. Oh my God, it was a village, right?
Right.
And so in July of 15, so it had been a little over a year, we had put the workings together to utilize all of the funds that we received at Memorial Funds to start Living in the Right Lane.
Oh.
And Living in the Right Lane is a nonprofit It's a tax-qualified 501c3, and we help other families, from just prayer support to, I say just prayer, but that's the biggest thing you can probably do for somebody, in my opinion.
Yeah.
To, they can't get to Children's Hospital because their van needs new tires. Well, let's put them on it, They need money to pay for gas, or they need maybe some funds to pay for Christmas this year because they've spent 6 months at Children's Hospital. Yeah. I don't think people realize when you have a child that's disabled, what a stress that puts on the family. Finding daycare, which I'm involved, of course, in York County Kids, which is a new organization that really hasn't even breathed life yet into the community, but it's coming, where the trying to put a specific effort into having quality childcare. We have a lot of it here, but we don't have enough, right? And so, we, with Living in the Right Lane, one of the things that we do is try to help them. Like, how do we help you find respite care? Mm-hmm. Brian and I have done respite care over the years for families, kids that have autism, Fragile X syndrome, kids with feeding tubes. Imagine, Emily, you're so blessed you have healthy children.
Absolutely.
But imagine having to find even just a sitter to go out for date night if one of your kiddos was on heart medicine, had a feeding tube, maybe was on breathing treatments, all these things. And obviously you first go to your family for that help, but that's a lifelong thing for some of these kiddos and families. And sometimes people's families get burnt out.
Yeah.
Or they're scared.
That's terrifying.
They're scared.
Yeah.
And so Brian and I have done that over the years. So we try to help with that. Just a ton of different things. Mm-hmm. We've had, I can say probably 4 or 5 kiddos that their parents have tried to get them additional health insurance through Medicaid. And clearly they should qualify. They have the disabilities. It shouldn't be a problem at all, but they're fighting. So we've helped that. And it's just, I really think for us as a family, we're so busy. Samantha's a senior this year. She'll be moving to St. Louis to play college softball, and to, of course, most important thing, of course, is to get a degree too. She's very interested in the health field, and so she's going down there to hopefully at some point get into flight medicine.
Wow!
So it's really
That's
cool.
Awesome.
I think a lot of that comes from her upbringing. She was right there taking care of Lane. And it was hard. She was, they were in the same grade at school when Lane passed away. She was 7, he was 8, and I think that's shaped her.
Absolutely.
Absolutely has shaped her.
Yeah.
Lacey's now 12. She was 2 when Lane passed away. What she has of Lane is our memories. She doesn't remember a lot. But what I can do for both of those girls and my husband is through Living in the Right Lane, when we are struggling as a family to bring ourselves together. So we're all busy, we're all doing all kinds of things, and we can't figure out how to connect with each other again. Mm-hmm. That's how you connect. I'm going to help somebody else.
That's awesome.
And I think that not only does it create really great endorphins for you, happy endorphins, mm-hmm. it also, the blessing you give that other family. And it's as simple as creating that prayer group, or mm-hmm. I'm seeing you. I see you driving down to Children's every day.
Right.
I see what you're doing because I've lived it and I know it. And then I think the other part is the grief side of it. You just, so many families, I say to a lot of people went to a funeral that day and then they went home.
Yeah.
And they moved on. And for families that lose somebody, whether it's a child or it's a spouse or an aunt or a grandma or grandpa, whatever it is, I'm not saying my story is the worst story, best story. I'm just saying that it's all relative, and I want people to know that I see them. I remember that. I remember those families that have lost children.
Right. That
date's on my calendar. I reach out to them and say, I'm thinking about you. I remember Cessna, Peyton, Parker, Isaac, there's other kiddos. But it's just, I think it's important to see them.
Absolutely.
And so I think there's so much power in helping other people because it can bring you peace. And again, it would have been the perfect opportunity for me to go back to those things I had when I was growing up, the alcohol, the fighting, and for that to have ruined Brian and I's marriage. It would have been easy for that to happen. And it happens in so many marriages after you lose a child. And it takes work. I'm not saying Brian and I never have argued. I'm not saying that we've never probably went to alcohol when things were hard. Because I'd be the first to admit, in those first couple months, it was easy to have a glass of wine at night just to help my body relax and go to bed.
Right.
Now, I know medically that's not really what happens. I get it. But, it's just easy to fall into that. And I think you kind of have to flip the switch.
Right.
You have to flip the switch, and you have to realize, I am choosing to be where I am today. Right? Every day's new. And I can choose to stay in that, or I can move forward from it. And so what I teach a lot when I do public speaking things that are personal in nature, obviously with COPSA OD and my job at COPSA OD as a CPA, I do education and I teach on tax and I teach on businesses and I do all that as well. But when I teach about my personal story and teach kids about and adults about what I think is really important, it is rising up from your situation, whatever it is, and knowing that you are in control of it.
I'm Freeman II. I'm President and CEO of Agri Products in York, Nebraska. We are a manufacturer of quality equipment, grain handling, food storage, food service. And if you ever want to get a hold of us, you can get on our website or you can contact us at 402-362-5500. Thank you.
That's my story.
Oh,
That's my story. That's a lot, isn't it?
It's so much.
But it's good.
So much.
It's, and it's not over. It's not over.
Not.
I mean, there's going to be something else. God forbid I lose a child again. Mm-hmm. God forbid that. But I realize that, there's a lot of scripture that lends to the fact that suffering is part of being a Christian. Yeah. It's part of realizing when God gave Jesus to us, and he allowed Jesus to be crucified to save us for our sins and all of that. I think, oh my goodness, I could never have chosen to give Lane.
Right.
I would have kept him forever. But what a beautiful gift that we have. And for me, a lot of the strength that I've found is in reading things. Right. And a lot of that's scripture-based. Not all of it.
Right.
Not all of it. I realize and I respect that some people don't share that same view with me, and that's okay. But you have to find your thing.
Right.
And what is your thing? And there's so much to just, I'd wake up days and I'd come home at night, and I was working in Lincoln for quite a while, and I'd come home and I'd cried the whole way home. Mm-hmm. And then Brian would come home from work, and I would try to protect him and not act like I was upset, because if he had a good day, I didn't want to ruin his good day. Right. And then I'd go and I'd read, some self-help book, a grief book, a Bible, and I remember Sam coming into me one day and she said, "Mom, why are you crying?" And I said, "I'm just trying to find the answers. I can't find the answers in these books." And it's so hard, but you have to pick it up.
Right.
And, I have no doubt that over the course of the next 30 years or 40 years of Brian and I's marriage, there'll be things we don't agree about, whatever. And that's okay. It's okay. Mm-hmm. It's about having those disagreements, agreeing to disagree. Mm-hmm. It's moving forward. And I'm in it,
Yeah, right.
And I'm in it with my kids, and I'm in it with the other people around me that I love. And so I just hope we can keep helping people with living in the right lane. And I think it can go beyond that. If you think about high school students, let's just use them as an example because I get the opportunity to talk to them coming up here in March, right? So let's talk about that for just a second. As a high school student, you're probably not thinking about, I can spend $500 or $1,200 to help somebody with tires. No, you can't. But you know what? You are a social media goddess or god. You know how to use social media. Teach your grandma and grandpa how to do it. Or use it for good, you know? Yeah. Use it to, instead, there's so much negativity around social media about kids, but use it to float somebody up, you know? Instead of picking on that kid that is overweight right now, who probably is going to be a stud when they're a senior, right? Instead of picking on them, you know, find something good. Mm-hmm. Hey, Johnny's great at basketball, you know, instead of Johnny, you're fat, you know, like figure out a way, use your talents, I guess is what I'm saying. And so many youth have really great talents that they don't share. Instead, they fixate on the negative things. Yeah. You know, and we can't do it. Yeah. Because if you have negativity around you, that's what you become.
It drags you down.
You become whoever you are with. Yeah. And you have to pick the people that you're with. Yeah. Sometimes that's not family. I mean, I'll say that too. It's not always family. Yeah. It's okay when you get old enough to realize that it's not a healthy environment to walk away from it. You know, I love spending time with my family in Iowa when I can, but there's also a reason that I'm okay that I'm in York County and I'm 3 hours away. Right. It's okay. There's when you grow up in a very small town, it was even smaller than McCool Junction, which is our address. It was very small. You know, when you grow up in a small town and you have a situation like that with your parents, you are judged from the second you're born of who your parents are. And you have to work really hard for people to think you are something different. Mm-hmm. And for me, it was easier to not be there to have to prove that. And obviously I fell in love, so it was easy to move away. Yeah. But I think, you know, you choose. You choose who you're with. You choose who you are.
Absolutely. So. Oh, my goodness. How do I even follow up with questions? Jeez.
I kind of just dumped it out for you.
No, that's awesome. I mean, I know I probably speak for literally anyone who's ever heard you talk about anything, but it's a true inspiration. And
thank you.
It's amazing to hear all that you've been through and all the really amazing things that you're doing. I mean, you're doing some really impactful things for a lot of different families. Mm-hmm. So I do have a handful of questions. First of all, I know that there's going to be people listening to this that are like, I need to get involved. I need to help. What do I do? Who do I call?
Sure.
How would they do that?
You know, so the first thing that I would say is, you know, look us up on Facebook. It's Living in the Right Lane. You can read the story I just told you. But it also, you'll be able to see kind of what we're doing. I would also invite you to take a look at the Peyton Parker Lane Playground Facebook page, because that's one of the biggest things that we've done in the last couple years. And I'm very honored to have been a part of that. I will say Julie Hoffman really carried me through that. She did an amazing job, did a lot of work, a lot of people in the community obviously too. So, and Paul Jekyll for really coming to us with that idea. I want to give credit where it's due on that.
Absolutely.
But, you know, Living in the Right Lane contributed into that project as well, and that allows kids to play right next to somebody else that has a different ability than they do, and that's really important for our children and for our adults, really everybody, to understand that you can love people and admire them for their differences, and you need to make it a point to do that every day.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I guess I can't even begin to imagine what it's like to go through some of the things that you've gone through, but I'm sure that there are people listening that can really relate to some of the stuff that you're saying. What piece of advice do you have for them? What would you say they absolutely need to look into or reach for when they're going through any of the processes that you've gone through?
Well, first I'd say find the strength in yourself, because that's really where it matters. You know, you can look to somebody else to give you that support, but it's really you. You know, it's kind of like that whole thing where somebody says you have to love yourself before somebody else can love you. There's so much truth to that. And I think, and it's okay to falter. I'm not perfect at all, but I'm definitely not good every day, you know. I would say to start first with a gratitude journal, because even if things really suck, you can find something to be thankful for.
Yeah.
And, if that's, I woke up this morning, there's food in my cabinet, because there's kids around this town that don't have food.
Absolutely.
I'm thankful that I have the opportunity to change the relationship with the other people that I know. It's hard. I think that grief counseling and things like that, probably your best resource. I really think Misty Burley at Metz Mortuary has some great resources for that. Misty's a great friend of mine. Cessna and Lane were great friends. And so I think that would be where I'd go. A church is a great place. But if you don't have a church family, maybe think about that for a minute. Do you need one?
Yeah.
And, again, it's okay if not, but it's surrounding yourself, too, with that person that you want to be.
Absolutely.
Who is that person? And by all means, you can private message me through Living in the Right Lane with your specifics, and I'll try to get you connected with somebody. I can do that, between the people that we know in the Lincoln community, medical community, and the Omaha area, and even some in Iowa and Colorado and Kansas. We can try to connect you. But I really think that strength comes from within, and it's a daily battle. It's not I'm going to wake up and it'll be perfect today, and it'll just stay that way. It doesn't.
Yeah. It's a lifelong thing.
It is a lifelong thing.
And yeah, well, I hate to do this because there's so many good things, but I think that we could keep talking for the next 7 days and probably just scratch the surface.
Yeah.
But just to wrap things up, is there anything coming up? What's new? What's next? Anything exciting for you or for any of your groups? Or
anything? So Living in the Right Lane, we're working on a project right now that will be helping the Ambassador, which is a long-term care facility for kids with special needs who aren't able to go home. That's in Omaha, so we're working on that right now. And so if anyone's interested in helping us with that, we have a list of things that we need on our Facebook page. It's an Amazon list. We always take donations too to help us with that. Oftentimes we're looking for volunteers. If that happens, I wouldn't say often, but sometimes we are. We'll post that on the Facebook page too. But you know what? If you follow our page and you pray for the kids and pray for the families that we're helping, that's a really big thing too for us. The money helps, buying us supplies for our blessing bags that we do, it helps. But, just that consistent thinking about those families, having an appreciation for where they're at is, I think, important.
Yeah. And every time I talk, I keep coming up with more questions. But
it's okay. I'm not in a hurry, so it's
fine. So let's say that I don't have a ton of experience with working with disability or anything like that, but I want to help on, the respite care side of things, or I want to do more. How do I learn? How do I get that experience and get on a list and be a resource for families?
Right. So the Department of Health and Human Services in Nebraska is where you have to go through kind of a certification process to be a respite care provider. And so you could definitely start that way. But if you have a family member or a friend that already qualifies for that, talk to their caregiver that they have, because that's really the shortest and quickest way. So like for us, we knew the families that needed the care. And so their caseworker, they put us in touch with their caseworker, and then we were able to specifically apply to be able to provide respite care to those kiddos. And the great thing about that is that relationships continue. So like both of those families that we've provided respite care over the years, neither one of those kiddos need that anymore.
Wow.
And through the state, according to the state, right? But we still do it for the one family just to help out. Mom and dad wants to go on a date, and we'll do it. And it's not often, but we're busy, so are they. So we do it when we can. And it's wonderful. And the other family we've stayed in touch with over the years, but that would be your shortest way to make it happen. And then it's just spending time with the kid and learning about them.
Right.
You know? And there is not, yes, it can be a little bit scary, but they have so much love to give. Like, just put yourself there for a minute, you know? And I also get the opportunity to coach some sports. I love softball, obviously, with my oldest daughter playing softball. My youngest daughter plays softball, too. She's not as serious about it yet, but so I've coached softball for a long time. And I tell those girls, you know, be thankful your legs work.
Yeah.
Your legs work, your mouth works.
Yeah.
Let's do good stuff with it.
Yeah.
Let's not talk bad. Let's run and jump, and let's do the things that we're supposed to do, that God's intended you to be able to do with those things. You have a healthy body.
Yeah.
Treat it with respect.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely.
So if, you know, I think sometimes we forget that what we do when we're young impacts where we are when we're older.
Yes.
You know? And, you know, there's certainly things that I did when I was a teenager that I wish I hadn't. You know,
Right.
I made bad judgments and did dumb things, and, you know, but I've forgiven myself for it, and I just have to move on from it. But you know, to those teenagers that I get an opportunity to, I guess, be a part of their lives, I want them to know that it does impact things later. Whether good or bad, it changes things,
Absolutely.
you know.
Yeah. It really does.
It does.
And it's so hard to think about it when you're a high schooler in the heat of things. And
Yep. But the biggest thing is knowing that you can make a mistake today and it's okay. You know, I talk to the high school kids too about, today you might tell me you want, like, let's just use Sam as an example, and she hears this, she's probably going to be frustrated with me, but, you know, this is what she wants to do today. But if she gets to St. Louis and she doesn't like it, I'm going to support her. If she gets there and loves it, I'm going to support her. She's got her whole life to decide what it is she wants to do.
Yeah.
And I didn't figure out where I wanted to be when I was her age. I
Right.
started off in school to want to be an orthodontist.
Oh, really?
I'm
Oh.
CPA. You know what I mean?
A little different.
It's just, you know, I think that's the other thing too. I think we put a lot of pressure on kids to figure out what it is they want to be. And the reality is that you don't have to.
No.
You know,
That's
it all
exactly right.
metamorphosizes into different things over the years anyway.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely. That's 100% true. Never thought I would be here. And I'm still probably not where I'm going to stay.
Yeah.
How
it just
life
happens.
goes. Yeah.
Now, for me, I love Copsodia enough. I'm probably never going anywhere.
Yeah.
I love it, and I think I'll retire there, and it's amazing. But, you know, this part, like what you and I are talking about with my personal life, if I could make that a half-time job and be able to support the family with part of that, that would be amazing too. But I
Right.
can't imagine, like, I love our clients, I love what I get to teach there, and I love the team, and so that's an outlet for me, and that's part of my joy, I guess. And, you know, the other thing that I would say to somebody that's struggling is, I know I'm going back to a question you asked a couple
you're
times
fine.
ago, but I said a gratitude journal. The other thing I would say is write down some short-term and long-term goals.
Yeah.
Write it down. Hold yourself accountable. Or find that person that you really like, that maybe is where you want, and ask them to hold you accountable.
Yeah.
Because, you know, shortly after Lane died, I had numerous people reach out to me and say, you know, there's a place for you here if you want to come work here, if you want to do these things, you can. And I'm like, I can't make those decisions just yet. It's a really hard time when you're going through that stuff. And that was a smart decision for me. But I did write down goals. And those goals were things that now I do. You know, and it's kind of like I said, at the moment when I was an adolescent and my parents divorced, and I thought, well, that was the biggest problem I was going to have, right? It was after losing Lane that I realized that being the best business person isn't the reason why I'm here.
Right.
It's not.
Yeah.
My why is my family. My why is getting to heaven someday.
Right.
You know? And that was a message that another mom that had lost a child said to me after Lane died. And at that moment, it hit me kind of weird. But she said, you did your job. And I said, my job? And she said, yeah, you got him to heaven. And I mean, every time I say it, it still gives me the chills.
Yeah.
But Yes, I love talking to my clients about their tax and their financial statements. I love that. It's a great part. Like I said, it brings me joy. I love it. But I more love the being able to help a family that just needs a little bit extra help.
Right.
Or calling my grandma and talking to her on the phone for 5 minutes because she's out of breath after 5 minutes. She's that age.
Yeah.
But just calling her up, she loves it too. Mm-hmm. So those little things that you can do, and setting those goals.
Yeah.
Set the goal. If you never set the goal, no matter how lofty it is, you're not going to get there. Yeah. So, do it. Yeah. You only have yourself to blame if you don't do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's my other very big pet peeve is when I meet people and they say, and they're 45 years old, and they'll say that, the reason for their problems is because they had an alcoholic father, or the reason for their problems are their mom and dad never showed them love, or the reason for their problem was they got a DUI when they were in high school, or, got a MIP or whatever you guys call it in Nebraska. It wasn't called that in Iowa. It's like that was a time in your life, and you are an adult.
Right.
Get over it.
Yeah. Grow from it.
Use it to boost you up.
Yeah.
Boost you up. And I know, addiction is hard, and I understand. I lost my dad. My dad was 54, and he died from liver failure. It was a terrible disease for him. And right. I get it. I understand it. But he let it go too long.
Right.
And I just hope, and I pray that people see that there can be a way out from anything.
Yeah.
Anything.
Yeah. Oh, man. I know. At least for me, with something that stood out for me during this podcast when you were talking, and I think that it is really important for everyone to absorb, if that's the right word, but one of the biggest things you can do for people is see them.
See them.
See them. Mm-hmm. And it seems so little, but it's not.
No.
It's huge.
It's huge. Thing.
That's what everybody wants. That's what everybody needs. So, oh, man.
Yeah.
Anyways, so I think we need to get this wrapped up. I guess, do you have any parting words of wisdom or anything before we go?
I am a realist, and I know that the things that are going to give me struggles are not over yet. And I'm in no way perfect, and I'm still trying to figure it all out. But I hope somebody, finds a little bit of, help or inspiration. And it's just my story. Everybody has a story. So.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining me. If anybody wants to get in touch with April, you can either reach out to us at the YCDC or look up Living in the Right Lane on Facebook. I'm sure she would love a private message. So I will let you go. Thank you so much for sharing your story, sharing your experiences. I know a lot of people will really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks, Emily.
In closing, we would like to once again take the time to thank our members, the people that help us drive change. We would like to thank York State Bank, Henderson State Bank, York General, Meade Lumber Company Incorporated, and York News Times. And thank you, our listeners, for tuning in. Catch you next time.